Hello, today's target is to use a variety of transition words, phrases, and clauses to convey sequence and signal shifts from one time frame or setting to another. We've already done a lesson on transitions in the plot planner, but now we're going to look at how we include them into our story. And if you look closely at the target, it says transition words, phrases, and clauses because sometimes you only need to add one word. Sometimes you need to add a phrase at the beginning of the sentence, and sometimes you need an entire sentence to show that shift from time or setting. So I've included some examples from some of the stories we've already read. This first one is from The Most Important Night of Melanie's Life. The three of them sat slumped before the dying embers of the fire. What could he see in Melanie? Mark wondered. It's a mystery, Clem said. They forgot how long they sat there watching the fire flicker out. Then they heard the sound of a car, and right away the front door banged open again. They forgot how long they sat there shows time passing, and also the fire flickering out shows that time had passed long enough that the fire would die out. The next one is from Charles by Shirley Jackson. What did he do? I asked again, but Laurie slid off his chair, took a cookie, and left, while his father was still saying, "See here, young man." The next day, Laurie remarked at lunch, as soon as he sat down, "Well, Charles was bad again today." And in this case, Shirley Jackson only had to add a phrase at the beginning of her sentence to show that the time had changed. I've included some other transitions that took place in Charles. On Monday, Laurie came home late, full of news. Wednesday and Thursday were routine, and with the third week of kindergarten. Some other ways to include transitions that you might have seen before is the double space between paragraphs. We went our separate ways knowing that we wouldn't see each other for months. 3 months had passed by the time the train rolled in the station. I eagerly searched the crowd for my brother. So that's showing that a lot of time has passed with the double space. And then you may have seen or used this before. This also shows time passing, but it's more commonly used in novels and longer works. For the purpose of our story, we want to work our transitions into the story by using the words and phrases and clauses, so I would steer clear of this. Our stories are only going to be 1 to 5 pages long. Alright, now I'm going to show you within my story, the Black Cat story that I've been working on, some of the transitions I've included so far. So I've plotted out the time sequence, how everything's going to take place, the events. But these are not the words I'm going to use to show the transitions. They'll take place within the story. So I wrote an intro, a beginning to my story, and I knew that I had to explain that it was taking place in the fall because that's important because there's going to be a football game. So I'll read through the beginning. Also, when I read through, I like to revise as I continue writing, so I'll keep reading through my story as I go, and if I notice any mistakes, I'll change it, or if anything pops in my head that I can change, I'll do that as well. The breeze caught my hair and lifted it off my shoulders. The sun was shining, but the leaves were fiery in color. It was the beginning of fall, my favorite season. Normally, I would be happy, but things have been pretty lonely since I started a new school this year. I have met some people in class, but I can't say that I've truly made any real friends yet. And being a freshman also means that I'm at the bottom of the totem pole, which is a whole... Let me fix that. Which is a whole other stress on my shoulders this year. A car passed by filled with high school students, and I didn't know. If I had known them, they might have given me a ride, but I was stuck walking. Not that it was that bad. Maybe I'll add... it was a pretty nice day outside. As I walked, I avoided stepping on cracks, a silly superstition taught to me by my grandma, who truly believed in those kinds of things. I knew all of the superstitions, broken mirrors, spilled salt, and even though I laughed at Grams, I secretly tried to avoid breaking any of the rules. I noticed I used truly twice. So I'll probably change one of those, just so I'm not using the same words. I'm going to bold it so I can go back in later and fix it. I was nearing my block when I looked up. And if you look, this is a transition now that I've included It's kind of a change of setting and a little bit of time passing because it's showing that she's been in her head thinking about things, and now we're going to get to the actual action of the scene. I stopped in my tracks, squinting my eyes to be sure I was seeing what I thought I was seeing. It was a black cat. Not a single patch of white on its fur. What a strange coincidence that I saw such a thing when I was just thinking about superstitions and bad luck. The cat hissed at me. Suddenly there was a large gust of wind that whipped my hair into a tiny tornado. There was a jolting creak and crack from above. I looked up, and in front of me, a giant branch came crashing down at my feet. I jumped back, my heart hammering against my chest. I looked in the distance, and the cat was still there, staring at me. I looked down at the branch again, and when I looked up, the cat was gone. I only had a short walk home, but I picked up my pace. Here's another transition now. I've included this transition because I don't want to have my reader sit and listen to the whole walk home because it's not important to the story. So I'm kind of fast forwarding until she gets home. It had to be a coincidence, but Graham's superstitions gnawed at me. A black cat crossing my path was certainly bad luck that I definitely didn't need at the moment. Here's another transition into a different setting. I walked in the door and tossed my backpack down and kicked my shoes off. They clunked loudly against the wall, leaving a scuff mark that I hoped my mom didn't notice. "I'm home," I yelled. "In the kitchen," Mom yelled. I made my way towards her voice. She had food sizzling in the frying pan, and I climbed onto the stool by the counter. "A little early for supper, isn't it?" I asked, grabbing an apple from the bowl and taking a bite. My mom eyed me. "Don't eat too much. We're having an early dinner because we are going to that movie that your dad has been waiting to see. We figured if we eat now, we'll be ready for popcorn during the movie." I cringed in my head. My parents were into boring, artsy movies that they were always trying to get me to watch. The last thing that I wanted to do was sit through one of those or be seen at the movies with my parents. I was going to go to the football game. Some kids from class will be there. It came out before I even had a chance to think about it. I didn't really care for football. I was never really athletic, more of a reader. But it was a great opportunity to see some people from school and get out of going to the movies with my parents. "Oh, that's great, Brittany," my mom said, just a little too enthusiastically. I knew that she was worried about me making friends. "Yeah, I can walk to the game. It's a nice night." My dad came home shortly after that, and we had dinner together, talking about the usual boring stuff. So the coming home shortly after is also a transition, so that we don't have to sit through the mom finishing the dinner. We can go right to them having dinner and then what happens after. When supper was over, my parents got ready to head out. I put on some warmer clothes, a hoodie and a scarf. "Brittany, be safe tonight," my mom said, looking a little nervous about leaving me behind. "Mom, it'll be fine. There will be a stadium full of people." My mom and dad gave me hugs, and we all went our own ways. The next transition is going to be Brittany leaving the house and walking to the game thinking about the cat. And I still have to write that scene. I just have this as kind of my placeholder. And then I started writing the one at the game. I watched the football game only half interested because my mind kept traveling back to the black cat. If you look, I still have to write the scene with the stands collapsing. And then I've started the scene with the cat and the fire. I crawled into bed and pulled the covers up to my chin, trying to keep away the chill that had set deep in my bones. The shadows in my room loomed over me, but I tightly closed my eyes and willed myself to sleep. I tossed and turned all night, dreaming up all the terrible things that could happen to me. So that's another transition then into, I'm not going to show her all night, but the tossing and turning all night shows that she has been sleeping for a while before she wakes up. So that's where I'm at. I still have a few scenes to add, and there'll be a few more transitions. But now you're going to get a chance to work on your narrative and think about the transitions between scenes and settings and time that you're going to include in your story.